Hey, welcome back, everybody. It's time once again for one of our favorite shows, This Week with Wendy, the only show where you find real talk about the real SoCal state of mind, with your host, Wendy Ross, who after decades of working at real estate brokerages in Silicon Valley and Orange County, she decided it was time for something different. And boy, did she create it. She created something called Veracity Real Estate. Time was right for a renewed commitment for bespoke client advocacy at all price levels, she thought. And people responded. Something you don't see in high-cost markets like Southern California. Through it all, she's built a company of data-driven, well, she says real estate investment advisors. We call them data divas here. I think that's what they really are here. Truth tellers, truth seekers. And truth be told, we can't wait to hear what she's going to tell us each and every week. And I have an advanced copy of today's topic. You're going to want to stand back from the mic because this is going to be explosive. The flames are going to come out of the microphones here today. Welcome, Wendy Ross.
Good morning, Paul. So you're just going to tease? You're not going to lay it out?
I'll just let you bring it out here because sometimes, I'm stunned at some of the things you call out within your own industry. We're supposed to play nice. Doctors are always supposed to, there's nothing wrong in the doctors. And there's lawyers. There's no bad lawyers in the bunch here. And Wendy's like, I don't know. We might have to cull the herd a little bit here. There's maybe a few that aren't following what they should be doing here.
Well, I think that this segue warrants a little bit of backtracking into my introduction. The reason I started Veracity Real Estate intent upon creating bespoke, high-touch real estate service for everyone is because I honestly believe everyone deserves to have their hand held when they're making the biggest investment they're likely to make in their life.
That's pretty radical thinking.
Yeah, calling me crazy.
That's pretty radical thinking.
Right?
In fact, I don't know if you want to go into this, but you and I were chatting just before the show about how they measure some of the top realtors in the country, and they have all these awards and lists, and the number of transactions they have to do to make that. It's almost physically impossible to. That means they're really not watching all these transactions go
That's
through.
exactly what
You're
we're going to get
jumping ahead,
into.
Paul, aren't you?
That's exactly where we're going. Well, okay, and so to your point, and I can't say this enough, that you always count on me to bring you something fresh and new, and market analysis interpretation you don't hear anywhere else. And one of the ways I can bring perspectives you're not going to find anywhere else is by surrounding myself with other experts and learning from them and leaning on them. However, today I'm back in the hot seat, and today I'm going to be talking about these history-making real estate headlines that we're already hearing blaring out there, and what the media is getting right and what they're getting wrong. And why? And to your point, I'm going to talk a little bit about the delicate underbelly, if you will, of my industry, and ripping off the Band-Aids. And I'm going to talk really openly about why I believe off-market listings should be off limits. It's not something that serves the consumer.
Do we have to pause now for the mics to cool off a little bit here?
I know.
Are we going to call the Orange County Fire Authority now? Flames are going.
I saw them standing outside.
Yes. I ordered them ahead of time, just in case.
She's the best PR person in the world. So
She anticipates.
I anticipate.
Talk about this. So the lovely Kara Stewart is back in the studio with me. And we know she's a frequent contributor here to OC Talk Radio. She is a media personality on her own. She's a marketing entrepreneur who is helming Alta Lunas Incorporated. And of course, she's the brand officer for my own company, Veracity Real Estate. So thanks for being here and alerting the fire.
Hi, Wendy. Yeah. Hi, Paul. You did a great job of teasing what we're going to be talking about today. Yeah.
Trying to, create some interest and trying to prepare them for the
that.
bombs that are going to explode in the next 40 minutes here.
No, let's just hit them hard.
Well, as Wendy said, she named her company based on truth, and we keep picking that up. And what we're seeing right now, though, is the tumultuous market is being met with a lot of concern from consumers, of course, but also some really increasing speculative behavior, curious behavior from other professionals here. And Wendy and others really think that that's just not fair. So in this world of if you need something done, you got to stand up and do it. That's why we're here today, right?
Right. If we don't stand up for what we believe is right, then we are to blame when things go wrong. There's culpability there. So,
all right, we have a lot to talk about with that. But first, how did we even get here? What happened with the market last week, Wendy?
Well, we are just inching our way into the data that's going to point to the change that we already know is occurring. So in the last week, we had 2% more listings come on the market than the week before. This should be the peak of the summer season. This should be when we have hundreds more listings coming on the market weekly. We only had 515 new listings come on for the entire county last week, which is a teeny number. 365 listings went into escrow. That was down 13% over the week prior. There is your indicator, people, that the market is cooling. We're in the peak summer months and we're putting fewer and fewer homes under contract. Also reflective of the market actually slowing is last week only 460 homes closed escrow. That was down 16% over the week prior. These are not good indicators of market stability. And of course, the days on market, as we've talked about, was still very low because this is the number for the homes that closed escrows. This is a lagging indicator. So those last few that closed escrow still had opened escrow after only 8 days on market. We're now trending up 2, 3, 4 weeks and longer, depending upon where the home's located. For those closed sales, though, last week, median price did hold strong at $1 million. That was 0% change. And the list price to closing price ratio was also still healthy at 101.7. So we were seeing 102%, 105%. I think it was February, March, we saw 106% of final price over the asking price. That is gradually inching down, and we're going to see that number falling as well. And even if we do see, and I expect we will by August or September, the list price to sold price ratio is actually going to be less than 100%. That doesn't mean that the home value fell. It means they didn't get what they were asking for. And sellers and agents tend to be kind of slow moving. They tend to look at only the data that's directly in front of them that was spoon fed to them by the industry, and they don't look for it themselves like I do. So they're not going to catch what we're talking about today. The market's already shifting, people. It's downshifting hard, and if we're not getting in front of it, then we're going to be behind. So having said all of that, what do I think is happening? Interest rates are 45% higher now than they were June of last year, and that's massive. And we do know that that's a large part of what fueled last year's truly artificially inflated market. I mean, for us to have so few homes to purchase and such huge sell-through and such fierce buyer competition, it was fueled by really, really cheap cost of money, you know. But home showings and new escrows and closed sales literally just slammed to a halt in May. The end of May, it was like someone just turned a light switch off. It got dark and nothing happened anymore. So, and now we've got this high stakes game of chicken going on. Buyers and sellers are, fiercely stubborn and waiting to see who's going to blink first. Buyers are saying, I'm not going to pay that. And sellers are like, well, I'm not going to take that, and I get it. I mean, interest rates are now in the 6s. They're pushing 6%. And a year ago, they were in the 3s. So buyers are just saying, no. But it's
and I've heard you have some really interesting conversations with your clients, both buyers and sellers.
Yes. Poor Kara. She has to listen to me going on and on and on. But, there are strategies, and this is where the cream rises to the top. This is where the true advisors of any industry come to the fore. When the going gets tough, then the advisors roll up their sleeves and get into the muck with the clients and help them understand this is what we can and can't do, and this is how to get to your desired goal, possibly. So, the whole craziness of this reckless abandon and just buyers throwing anything at the wall to see what sticks is gone. And for the first time, it's interesting. I was looking at my data. For the first time since 2018, our housing inventory is actually building up and accumulating while sales demand is falling. And this is not a remarkable phenomenon in and of itself, except that inventory usually accumulates and sales usually fall at the end of the year, not in the middle of this peak selling cycle. This is not something I've ever seen. It is sort of similar to what we saw, in 08 in that crash, except for there are far fewer numbers. We don't have 10, 12, and 15,000 homes on the market. We have 5. And we don't have people who are underwater and don't have equity. So it's going to be a more stubborn correction than that one was. It's not going to be as sudden, it's not going to be as profound, and it's not going to be as easy to decipher. Even though headlines are already screaming that prices are going to plummet. I mean, we all know that Doty did his mid-year, the semi-annual update to the Chapman economic forecast, which is great. We all knew prices were going to soften. We all knew appreciation was going to soften. But some media pundits took his or a statement that they anticipate a 14% reduction in median price by June of 2023 to prices are falling 14%. And those are not equal statements. Those are not the same thing. Um, the latter statement, the more inflammatory, exciting, titillating statement, will influence buyers to pay less. So it's actually self-fulfilling, which is sort of annoying. Let the market correct.
And that's the problem we see across so many thorny, complicated issues like this, is that the Chapman Economic Update was quite robust, touched upon several factors.
It did.
Yet in the summaries that went out from some news organization and even bloggers and others that were viewing it, reading it, and opining on it, really only went for the most cataclysmic kind of takeaway from it. And then consumers and investors weren't diving in deeper to understand what was behind it.
Right. And taking just the sound bites, and I get it. Media has to sell, And
we all have to do that.
You're right. And something that sounds cataclysmic is going to sell more. But really what they had said, and it makes complete sense to me, is that we can expect prices to soften about 1% a month. In aggregate, that's going to end up, because it is, exponential, it'll end up being about 14%. But 1% price softening per month is not the sky falling. It is the cooling of the market, and the market was superheated. It was going to cool. This is not news to anybody. But anyway, so here we are. We, like I said, it's not like '08 where we had 12, 15,000 homes on the market. And we're not even at a point where we're like a normal June, when we would have, maybe 8,000 to 9,000 homes available for sale. Last year we had 5,400 or so, and this year we don't even have 5,000 on the market. So it's not the same phenomenon. And that's why I keep saying, caution, pump the brakes, don't jump to conclusions. We haven't seen this market before. This is new information. And the way we are relating to our homes and what it means to us has changed. The whole psychology of real estate has changed. And if we're to be true advisors to our clients, we need to look at this, like you said, a holistic landscape to truly understand what's going to happen and to try to predict what's coming next. So,
and some of the factors that, some psychological, but also just the factors of life that may have prompted that summer surge previously, like people moved before their kids went back to school, or they moved for a job. Well, if we're going to be living in a hybrid environment, some of these factors may not have to be seasonal anymore, right?
Right. And that's a very good point. I think that people's conception of the seasonality of the market is pretty much out the window. And I'm only speaking for Orange County, because I fully embrace that where my sister lives in Ohio, they have weather. The seasons are real. It is functionally much more difficult to go slogging through snow to look at someone's house than it is in springtime. And in the summer, when it's 110 degrees with 100% humidity, you might not want to do it then either. So seasonality makes more sense in other areas. Here in sunny SoCal, where we have happy weather in the 70s pretty much year round, we're not exposed to these issues. And to your point, Kara, our work-life situation has changed as well. And kids' school years are going longer, and summer school, I think, is going to be here for a while as we try to get them caught up from all of it. So, and on and on and on and on and on. But one thing that I do find to be a fascinating and tragic outcome of this lack of inventory that I keep talking about, we had so few homes on the market. And to your point, Kara, COVID did change the way a lot of people work, and a lot of people thought, I'm going to get into real estate because my job, whatever it is, it has been either greatly reduced or eliminated, so I'm going to get my license. So we're in this really interesting conundrum where we have a record high number of licensees in my industry and a record low number of homes to sell. So what do you think that causes? That causes shenanigans. People doing whatever they can possibly do to make a buck. And we have now seen a record high number of off-market listings. And to the point, it is so outrageous that the attorneys for the state of California's Department of Real Estate have released promotional training videos explaining to all of us in the industry how this is not okay and how this is not in the consumer's best interest. And they implemented several new policies, like the clear cooperation policy.
We're going to talk about that because what we're seeing, though, that is, although the industry is advising the industry, this information is not trickling out to consumers or to investors. So before we get into it, I have a slew of questions about what is an off-market property and a sale, and why it's bad when it seemingly seems good, and more importantly, when so many agents and brokers actually tout it as a secret sauce that they're giving their clients as an advantage. Before we get there, though, Paul did kick us off with this concept of, you're kind of spilling some secrets of how the sausage is made. And people in your industry, our industry, are not going to like it. Why are you doing this, Wendy?
You know, I just have to sleep at night. I just do. I can't take food out of someone else's mouth because I'm hungry. And that's what this smells like to me. I see these people in my industry cannibalizing their clients, and the clients don't know that they're being abused. And they say, yeah, Joe Blow did a great job for me. And Joe Blow continues to get rewarded and get more business and cannibalizes more people. And it's so indecent. I just can't stomach it. I won't allow my agents to do it. I won't allow my clients to make uninformed decisions. And I just feel like so many other people in my industry feel like I do and behave like I do. And we should just collectively speak up and tell the consumers what it is we're being advised not to do and why.
You hear that, Paul? Wendy's calling for a revolution.
I kind of am.
I like this. I
kind of am. I feel like when people get out there and they say realtors are overpaid, they make too much money for doing too little, and they're taking advantage of us. Sadly, sometimes they're right. And that hurts. And it hurts all of us. And there is a right way to do this. And we are necessary. And we should be advisors. And we should know what the hell we're doing. And we should have oversight. And. We don't. And I feel like I'm the only one here spitting in the wind talking about this, but I'm going to keep talking about it because consumers deserve to know what is supposed to be happening for them.
I love that you are evolving into really being a consumer watchdog right now.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
I feel like Mike Wallace, God rest his soul, is going to bust in here in a second and help us understand this. So,
dare to dream, right?
Every week you present what's happening in the Orange County market. It's really important to understand that data, to know what to do next. But also it's really important to know what not to do. So let's talk a little bit about that and some of these shenanigans, scams, outright deception that some agents do. If we can get into that, if you would.
Sure.
So really quickly, just one sentence definition. What's an off-market listing, also called what?
A pocket listing.
Sale?
Yeah. That is a listing that has not been publicly promoted. So, they are allowed, a pocket listing or an off-market listing is permitted. And like if I was selling Oprah's house and she might not want to have it put in the internet, I understand that. Incidentally, I've been tracking her real estate buying and selling, and it is openly on the market. But I'm just saying, as an example, if there's someone who is so important, or they're a CEO and they feel like their children are kidnap risks, or of course, a quiet off-market listing makes complete sense for that scenario. And that is why it's permitted, to truly respect the privacy of people who need and want their privacy. They have a right to that. But the problem is that's not what's being done.
So give us an example of how that plays out here in Orange County.
Okay. So let me start with how it should be played out.
Okay.
Let's say Judge Smith, who is a Supreme Court judge, has a home here. He doesn't want the world to know where it is or that it's his, and he wants a very quiet listing. Done. I totally respect that. By definition, that means no sign in the yard, no flyer, no external publication, no social media, no email campaign, nothing. I don't even talk about it over cocktails in a public restaurant. It is only discussed within my brokerage with my team, and we quietly go out and one-on-one, usually with NDAs, we pursue potential buyers for this person. That is a pocket listing properly done.
A true need-to-know basis.
A true need-to-know basis. But what's happening is that because so many licensees are starving, they're door knocking and they're saying, hey, I know that you don't want the germy COVID-y masses traipsing through your house or whatever the heck it is that they sell them. Let's do this quiet listing. I will quietly vet everybody that comes across your threshold. We'll keep this on the DL. You're going to have high touch service, blah, 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 whatever. And then they go and they start promoting it on social media. I got 3 emails yesterday from agents about their off-market listings, not realizing they were sending it to the competition because it's against the rules to do that.
I received some as well.
Right. Yeah. But they're out there breaking the rules because ideally they're hoping they're going to go and snare a buyer and they're going to get 2 sides of this commission they've negotiated with the seller. The seller doesn't know. The seller thinks that they're getting high-touch service and they're getting this exquisite privacy that they, in their vast importance, deserve. And it's nonsense. It is nonsense. What's happening is that fewer people are aware of the listing and you're not getting as many offers.
All right. Talk about that. So, they're being pitched to the sellers that this is really for their benefit. But how is this hurting sellers with their ability to actually market their profit?
There's
properties?
actually there's two big areas where I see there's a problem here. And one is, as with anything, the more people know something is for sale, the more people will write offers, and the generally speaking, 99.9% of the time, the higher the price the seller will achieve. Period. The fewer the people know about it, the fewer people compete for it, and the lower the price for the seller. It's pretty easy. It's pretty common sense, right? The part that sellers don't understand is that there are so many lawsuits going on right now over housing discrimination and fair housing, and conscious or unconscious bias. So if a brokerage only promotes a listing, a home, to the people that that person knows, they are exposing the seller to the risk of lawsuits for housing discrimination, because maybe I, as a broker, don't know that many Jewish people or Hindu people or, I don't know, Israeli people or whatever. You know, there are so many, or maybe I don't know very many veterans. Veterans are a protected class, you know, so you're now exposing the seller to potential housing discrimination lawsuits, because after that sale closes, you can be damn sure that that listing agent will then put it in the MLS, because they want to have bragging rights for all the sales that they did. And the world at large is going to go, hey, wait a minute. How did that house sell and I never knew it was available? Why didn't you let me look at it? Is it because I'm black, I'm white, I'm pink, I'm yellow, I'm a veteran? You know, it's not okay. And the lawsuits are real, people. This is really happening.
So let's talk about that. So the MLS system allows the agents and brokers, of course, to list the properties they have under contract.
Correct.
But that then the MLS systems picked up around the world, right? And marketed to all the other sites where any consumer can log on the internet and view properties for sale.
Yes, we as brokers have the opportunity to opt in or opt out of syndication. And that means that our listings for our agents, because I opt in, they get pushed out to all the consumer-facing sites. So any site where a consumer can go and say, I want to look for homes for sale in Orange County, they're going to see my agent's listings. They're going to know that they exist. We're getting to a point, we're getting really close, not fast enough in my opinion, for consumers to be able to click a button and say, I want to see this house, you know, and I want to write an offer. Some companies like Redfin has already built this, Zillow has built this, and what's unfortunate is they have built these websites where consumers can interface really quickly and easily, but they represent that those listings all belong to them. Not deliberately and not specifically, but functionally that's how it looks to buyers, and buyers don't know those aren't those companies' listings. So that's kind of a problem for me. But
Transparency issue.
transparency just isn't out there.
So the properties are listed on the MLS, usually sell much higher than the pocket listings, right?
Correct.
So the seller could be leaving money on the table by believing this agent's line, right? And then inadvertently, an agent or broker could be opening up their seller to housing discrimination claims.
Right. And the housing discrimination lawsuit would impact the broker and the seller. And ignorance of this and reliance upon the broker does not fully protect the seller. The seller is still going to have to lawyer up and defend themselves. And God forbid they ever said anything that was truly defamatory, you know, or exclusionary, you know, that then they're hosed. You know, fair housing laws apply to all of us. We do not have the right to not sell our home to a protected class because we don't like them. We do not have that right.
And the flip side of that, though, is we can't even cherry pick the next residents or next owners, right?
No.
I couldn't say, well, I really want a family with a little girl to grow up in this house because of my girl.
You can't. And I'm not saying I agree with it. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I am merely sharing that you cannot do that. That is forbidden. Period. Hard stop. End of story. It just is what it is. And there's one more interesting thing about the pocket listing. And I saw one, I'm not going to name any names, but I saw a home that sold off market with a broker who's pretty famous for doing this, is, you know, the MO. And I'm sure that this broker knew the buyer. And when I looked at it, they really overpaid for that house. And I'm wondering, did that broker explain to the buyer, you're really paying a premium for this house? Maybe. But functionally, that buyer can then go back and sue the broker saying, wait a minute, you were looking out for the seller's best interest, but not mine. And you were supposed to look out for my best interests as well. I mean, it's an indefensible position to be put in.
This is just a bad decision all around
It's a bad
for the
business
brokers,
decision.
the agents, buyers, and sellers. No one really wins in this,
The broker wins more than anybody else. The seller definitely doesn't. And sometimes the buyer doesn't either.
but still opens themselves up to risk by doing it. So why do it?
I don't know.
All right. But part of the reason, well, from understanding you correctly too, is that this is allowed to go on because it's not codified being against California law.
Right.
But the state has mandated brokers comply with some new policies to make this fairer, right?
Right.
What's that called, and how does that work?
It's the clear cooperation policy, and I recite this language to my clients, and I doubt any other broker does. And the language in this policy is this: we are required to exercise utmost honesty, absolute candor, integrity, and unselfishness toward the client. This requires that an agent not compete with his or her client and act at all times in the best interest of his or her client, to the exclusion of all other interests, including interests that could benefit the agent or others. In addition, this requires that a licensee refrain from dual representation in a real estate sales transaction unless he or she obtains the consent of both principals after full disclosure. How many times do you think brokers are actually gaining informed consent from both buyers and sellers before doing these dual agency agreements? I would argue pretty much never.
Goose egg. Yeah.
Right?
Well, I think even Polly, you shared a story once of when you purchased a home previously, you thought that the seller's agent was being helpful to you by also representing you, right?
Right.
I thought so,
Yeah.
because they're going to save money, and they know what the mindset of the buyer is, and I'm gonna make this deal work for both of you. They only
Right.
made it work for them.
Right. This is my point. And I'm not saying all agents are bad. They're not. There are a lot of them like me who are very honest, who are very legitimate, who are working in good faith all the time. The problem is they're not loudmouths like I am, and they're not objecting to the shenanigans. And we need to object to the shenanigans because we are here to be consumer advocates. Like it or not, we are to be held accountable if we're not. So we may as well just let the world know what we're supposed to be doing and do that.
And a lot of this comes because, as you've said, some agents are just so poorly trained, and the influx of new agents, they haven't even been able to experience something yet. So
And the lack of training for
veracity
these
is
newbies.
hiring, right?
Yeah, veracity is hiring, and the learning curve is real. The training
Yeah.
is real. I mean, my agents still, even my most seasoned agent, copies me on every email that they send when it relates to a contract or negotiation. I see everything. That is oversight, people. And I defy you to find any other broker that's doing that. There's a few, but it's not these shops where they're out there going, fill the pipeline, fill the pipeline, fill the pipeline, get more, get more, get more. Because it's crazy. These agents are just out there being salespeople and saying, here, sign this, here, sign this, here, sign this. And then their follow up on what happens after that is almost zero.
Yeah, what happens after that's really important. I mean, we've heard some shocking stories
I know.
of people who have sold their homes and their agents never even discussed with them, where are you moving?
Right? So we're in an environment where there's like almost no listing inventory. It's hard to find a replacement home to buy. It's equally hard to find a home to rent. And we're the real estate professionals. How can we take a listing and offer to sell someone's home and not at least have a conversation with them, even if it's only in passing? Where are you going to move? Where are you going to move? Where are you going to go? And someone told me this story last week, and I was like in tears. It broke my heart that there was this poor man. He was a widower. His wife died suddenly, unexpectedly. He decided he had to sell his house. This realtor marches in, takes his listing, puts it out there. Thank God on the MLS. Got a cash buyer who said, I'll give you a 10-day close. And the seller's like, oh my gosh, that's great. I'm going to get cash. I'm going to get what I want. It's in 10 days. And then he starts going through his wife's things and doesn't even begin to know where to begin. I mean, he's in shock. He's suffering. He has a little over a week now to get the heck out of his house, box up all of his memories, goes to his broker and says, I need more time. The broker's like, nope, get out. No offer of assistance, no trying to negotiate for more time. The broker didn't even ask the question, where are you going to go? A lot of third-party people, neighbors included, had to help this poor man move through this horrifying experience, which just didn't have to happen. All his broker had to do was ask him, where are you going to go? It was that easy, and didn't do it. That is how low the bar is in my industry. Anyway, that's why we're talking about this stuff. It's heartbreaking.
It is heartbreaking, but hopefully we can prevent them from happening again. A lot of this really comes down to people don't know what they don't know,
Right.
and a lack of communication from agents and brokers.
Mm-hmm.
So how should what are warning signs or signs that consumers can look for to kind of know that their brokers, their agents are really advocating for them? How are they should be spending their time and clarifying this entire process to their clients?
That is a great question, because there's so many moving parts to this. There's a lot of layers to buying or selling this ginormous asset, which is real estate. So, if you're a buyer or a seller, if your broker isn't coming right out of the gate having constant conversations about market conditions, that's a red flag. Because market conditions are like the ocean. The waves are constantly coming in and going out, and no two sets are the same. It is a constantly moving thing. We should be having a constant conversation about this. And then as we move into the process of, okay, buyers, we're looking at this house. This is what you can expect. This is how negotiations typically go. This is what the process looks like in our area, because real estate is hyper local. Different regions have different customs. Normally buyers pay for this. Normally sellers pay for that. You should expect to do a home inspection. It would normally cost this. Your lender's going to have you pay for an appraisal. It'll normally cost that. Loan fees are generally this amount. I mean, you have these conversations about what to expect. And then when you do get into a point where you're actually negotiating with a buyer or a seller, we are the arbiters to help them understand and give them context about, is this normal? Is this reasonable? I mean, does a buyer usually ask a seller to pay for a home warranty? Well, yeah. And who normally pays to transfer homeowners association fees? And who normally pays for this? And do I have to get a termite inspection? And all of this stuff that we as advisors need to tell them. We don't just leave them to the wolves and go, okay, here's what they want, and then walk away. And I've seen brokers do that. It's heartbreaking. We also need to be there to offer creative solutions for how we might get our clients more money, or how we might help. For a seller, obviously we want to get them more money, but if we're representing a buyer, we have to offer some solutions to help them save money. And something that I've done, which matters to my clients because they're number nerds just like I am, I've had clients who are cash buyers, and they were making investments that they knew were going to be long-term hold, perhaps legacy properties. So I said, okay, well then you're paying cash. Let's negotiate that you're going to pay a little bit less for the property than the seller wants, but you're going to pay all of their costs, including the commissions. So you get a lower net sales price. The seller net's exactly the same. You're not taking from them. You're saying, I'm going to get you to the same net price. Let me show you how. I'm going to take all of your expenses and put them on my side of the balance sheet. I'm going to pay all of this stuff for you. Now I get a lower property tax levy forever, because per Prop 13, unless we change it, it can only go up 2% per year. So if somebody is going to pay $2 and $3 million for a property, having a slightly lower property tax starting point matters. And that, over time. And the slightly lower sales price in most cases dictates the amount that they're paying for their title insurance policy and their escrow fees and. So there's some impact. It may seem like small money, but over time it's tens of thousands of dollars. And it's our duty to explain these options to our clients. And I just don't think we are. I don't think that we are doing our job, which in my opinion is actually training our clients on how to make intelligent decisions on their own.
And what you're talking about is a pretty time-intensive process with your clients.
God, yes.
So, I know we need to talk about our sponsor here, and we're coming up on the hour, and Paul's going to jump in here in a second. But I do want to go back to something that Paul teased, because I think it does help explain. You just defined a very time-consuming process with clients of how agents and brokers should be behaving to operate in the best interest of their clients. Yeah. Yet, as Paul talked about, we see agents or brokerages that are just bragging about the volume of clients they have. How are they? Are these just the farms that are behaving badly that you're talking about? How are they handling this, and what does it really mean?
I have seen a few agents at some of these big brokers who really do give exquisite high-touch service. And they have administrative people and they have marketing people that do the things that truly can be farmed off to someone else. And they just work all the time. But in most cases, it's teams. You have the salesperson out there smiling, shaking hands and kissing babies, getting the contracts. And then they actually aren't participating in the process thereafter. So, and I've had to be on the other side of the table with these people, and it's maddening. The left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. The left hand doesn't know what the right hand said. It takes much longer. It's just a maddening process. But all the world sees is at the end of the day, they sold this many homes. And Gina and I were laughing at it the other day because she found this thing. this affiliation that we could be part of, but the requirement was that each of us sells more than 100 houses a year. And when you do the math on the time required to do that job properly, I mean, it takes hours to do market analysis for each different client because they're buying presumably slightly different homes in slightly different neighborhoods, right? It takes hours to review the market. Then when you're in negotiation, it takes hours to advise on the contract and train the client. It takes hours to read all of the disclosures and things that we get. I mean, if we're doing what we should be doing and we're training our client on it, we are spending up to 67 hours a week just doing the bare minimum if we're doing 100 clients a year. That's 67 hours a week of just doing this. That's not eating, it's not sleeping, it's not marketing, it's not networking, it's not going to the DMV. It is just 67 hours a week with our nose on the contracts. Who do you think is doing that? No one. No one. And listen to me, people. In Orange County, real estate, in my opinion, should be like a fine restaurant. If you walk into a Michelin star restaurant, there's usually a dozen tables or fewer. You have the best dining experience of your life, right? That's how I think real estate should be. If we only bring on 2 to 3 more clients per person per month, and we end up closing 50 sales a year, half of what this industry wants us to do, we're still making over $500,000 a piece. That's plenty. That is plenty. I am okay with that. Thank you.
Michelin star, not quick serve fast food.
I am not saying.
I think that's a mantra for life, actually.
Yeah. I mean, I will wait a year to get a table at French Laundry because it's French Laundry. I hate to get so angry, but it bothers me that the consumers don't understand how many hours their brokers are supposed to be working for them and how many hours they as clients need to set aside to understand what this process is so they can make their own decisions.
Well, you've made this commitment. This isn't going to be the first time that you're exposing the misconceptions of our industry and really standing up for consumers and investors and telling them what they need to know. So we're going to have more shows like this, Paul. And I'm sure you have questions, but before we get into any more questions and wrap up, will you share about our wonderful sponsor?
Absolutely, because one of the ways this show enriches everybody is by bringing in the guests you do and the sponsors that you have, people like Ford and DiIulio, an Orange County-based boutique litigation firm with experienced attorneys from the big law firms, so a smaller firm with people from the big law firms. Partners founded the company, did so in a concept of aligned interests, where their success is supposed to align with your success, where they're not just rewarded for being fast or being efficient, it's also being effective in getting you what you want, and where they engage in the relentless pursuit of their clients' goals, whether it's litigation, mediation, or a trial. I think that's something everybody should take a look at and really kind of redefinition, like you're talking about, of what an attorney should do. Mm-hmm. If you want to know more, check them out, FordDiulio.com, just like it sounds, FORDDIULIO, FordDiulio.com. That really says it all in my mind. Is this time for a redefinition of what a real estate, whatever you call yourself, agent, broker, mm-hmm. person, consultant, mm-hmm. in a high-level transaction, if I'm merging 2 companies, mm-hmm. I don't expect it to go fast. I expect it to be effective. Mm-hmm. And I expect it to take care of all the contingencies and think it through, because I'm only going to sell my company once. Mm-hmm. Same thing with my house. But too often, I think they're just salespeople. And salespeople, we all know what they want to do. Get in and out as fast as they can, get as much money as quickly as they can, mm-hmm. and on to the next one.
It's so true.
And in that world, is it any wonder that people are saying, I'm not sure I need, if all you're doing is just putting up a sign mm-hmm. and signing a contract, maybe I can do that.
And I understand that position completely. And I also empathize with a lot of these agents who work at these big box brokerages where they are basically trained, you are a salesperson, you are to go out there and collect clients, and we will reward you for that.
Right.
And don't you worry about all these other details. We have attorneys to take care of that.
Right.
Many of these people, like I said a couple weeks ago, don't even know who their broker of record is, no less having met with them. They don't even know them. My poor people can't escape me.
and they're not trying to think through any implications for what you talked about getting a lower price and what it does to your property tax and other sorts of things. They're not thinking through it. It's just, here's an offer, take it.
They're not advocating for these people, and that's a training issue. And for many agents, the onus falls to the broker. And for those who aren't clear, the broker is the licensee who is culpable for all decisions made on behalf of the clients of that company. And the agents act as agents of said broker. So basically, they are an extension of that broker. So if an agent makes a misstep, the broker is left holding the bag. So why would that broker not supervise the agents? And
So
make
do
sure
the
they're well
brokers
trained?
set the culture? Like, do the people at the top set the tone? Are they just trying to churn through, find as many deals and churn through them as fast as they can?
In my opinion, in most cases, yes. In some
That's
cases,
pretty radical. That
yeah.
doesn't say a lot.
In
Yeah.
some cases, no. I mean, there are some excellent brokers out there. There are some people, and when I cross the path with them and we're on the opposite side of a negotiating table, we're delighted to see each other again. They're out there. They really are. But consumers need to know what to look for, and they need to know what to ask. How much time do you spend doing research? How much time are you going to dedicate to my understanding these environmental disclosures and all of these new things, all of these new requirements of sellers to explain to buyers what the fire threat is for the home that they're selling, and fire hardening, and what is fire hardening, and who's going to explain all this to these clients?
Well, and the whole strategy of how we're going to price this and how if we do reduce it, I just feel like
Right.
it's they come in and you sign a deal. And I made the fool's errand of just walking into an open house and ended up buying a condo from somebody who they represented me and the seller. And I thought, well, this will make it simple. They understand the seller, and we'll just cut to the bottom line here.
And theoretically it should, but humans are humans, and greed is real.
Yeah.
It is. It is impossible for any one human to prove that they represented opposing parties equally. It is impossible to prove it. Whether or not they did, they may.
Right.
But to prove it later, how do you prove that? Like I've said, I have only done 2 deals in my entire career where I was on both sides. And in both of those situations, all the parties were around a table together in the same room, and we discussed what everybody wanted. It was very transparent.
It's more of a mediation than it was
It
a
was.
sales transaction.
It was. And it was in the bloodbath in the market where the seller was underwater, so they weren't able to walk away with any dollars in their pocket anyway. So they just needed to get it sold.
I just felt enormous pressure to get the deal done. So there's another buyer with another offer.
Right.
You got to sign this right now. What do you mean you're reading those disclosures and stuff? We don't have time for that. Everything was
wait.
hurry up, rush.
We don't have time to read the disclosures.
That's what I was told. I was told.
How is this okay, people? Is
Yeah.
anyone listening? Yes, make the damn time to read the disclosures. Read the disclosures. And I know no one's going to want to hear this. If you're buying something in a homeowners association, read every HOA document. There have been red herrings in there that will blow your mind. You got to read it. And especially read the HOA meeting minutes notes, because that's when you hear what your neighbors are complaining about.
Well, and then otherwise you become the person. I've been in my neighborhood for too long, the one that's always fighting with your HOA. What? I got to do what?
Paul's the gadfly? I'm shocked.
What, you mean I can't leave my garage door open overnight? You mean I can't paint my house purple? You mean I can't dismantle my car on the driveway?
Yeah.
What? Yeah.
Some of those I'll buy, but boy, we could do a whole show on HOA
I know I can't
stuff
plant
here.
an elm tree. I can't plant holly I know.
I will tell you one little quick funny story. The very first condo I bought, well before I met Wendy, Paul, my agent lost the keys on closing day. I had to hire a locksmith. I had to convince the locksmith that yes, I was allowed to be there,
Yeah.
and the agent wouldn't even pay for the locksmith.
What?
Wow.
I did not know to read the HOA rules and regulations before time, and my very first...
I didn't even see a copy of the HOA.
Yeah, I don't even know if I did.
Yeah.
And the first infraction I did was I had a little bud vase in the windowsill, and with a flower in it, and received a notice that I was not allowed to display beer bottles. And I said, it's a bud vase. No, it looks like a beer bottle to
Yeah,
us.
right.
So I actually was fined by the association because the person on the board who was in charge of community observation or whatever they called it didn't like my style and choice of the vase.
Yeah.
So, buyer beware.
It makes my head hurt. There are so many things that we as veterans should know and should share with our clients.
But don't they realize that this is just going to damage the industry's reputation, and that the next time I sell a house, I might think I'll just go to one of these, robo things, and I'll put out the sign, and somebody will show up. If that's all they're doing is just doing an open house and signing the documents.
Again, I know I say this all the time. A broken clock is right twice a day.
Yeah.
So sure, you can do that if you want to. And if you're a buyer and you don't care what you don't know, fine. But especially if you're a seller, the liability is enormous. The liability for selling your home, especially in California, is ridiculous.
Yeah.
It is ridiculous. Part of the reason the agents here make too much money is because our E&O insurance, our liability insurance is ridiculous.
How long can they come after you for? 5 years?
Depending
10 years,
up to
2
5 years.
Yeah, 5 years. I thought it was about 5 years.
Yeah, depending upon what the complaint
You
is.
didn't tell me this. You didn't disclose this. I didn't know this.
And I have heard of, well, a lot of my friends are attorneys, and I hear about lawsuits all the time. I mean, I'm hearing things like, well, I actually saw this one. This was years ago. Someone, a listing agent who was like one of these big deals in this neighborhood who sold hundreds and hundreds of homes, someone mistyped the listing. I don't know if it was him or if he had his underling put it in the MLS, mistype it as 14-something million dollars when it was supposed to be $1.4 million. So for weeks and weeks and weeks, no one went to see the house because it was $14 million. Didn't catch it. Didn't catch that their own listing had the wrong damn price on it for more than a month. Really?
Fact check.
Yeah, and I'm actually going to be an expert witness in another case where a flipper, bought a house, improved it, sold it. They told their listing agent, when asked, so the guys that sold it to us said they had some sort of engineering issue, and I don't know exactly what it was. Agent didn't tell the current buyer about that. The buyer later sued for non-disclosure.
Wow.
And and they're justified. The seller's getting sued too because the non-disclosure occurred, on their watch, but they had a dumbass agent who didn't protect them.
And sellers don't have insurance like agents do. Agents say, well, I got insurance to cover this. The seller doesn't have any insurance.
Yeah, I mean, the seller is protected to a degree in that they lean into the broker and say, you should have represented me properly, and your lack of.
But that means one lawsuit turns into two lawsuits.
Correct.
Somebody sues me and I get sued.
Actual fraud and constructive fraud.
Yeah.
That is correct, sir. And there was one, a very dear friend of mine, his wife wouldn't let me sell their house. Whatever. Anyway, so I recommend someone else. They sold their house, and there was one day, and this guy ran an international tech company. He was a very, very busy man. He was in other countries more than he was here. And he was pulling his hair out going, I can't find a part for this dishwasher. And I'm like, why are you doing that? And he goes, well, because the buyers requested all these repairs and we have to do it. I was like, no, you don't. Their agent didn't even sit with them and discuss what is customary. I mean, she could have advised them to get a home warranty that protects them during escrow. So if these repairs come up, the home warranty covers it. Or just say no. We're not going to fix it. They got zero assistance with this. And this guy who runs a multi-million-dollar international company is looking for a part for an old dishwasher. I'm like, what the hell is going on, people?
And so the agent is making a healthy commission
Correct.
off of that sale, and he's running around trying to find the part for the dishwasher.
That is correct, sir.
Okay.
I think in the next few weeks, we're going to have to publish a checklist of what buyers and sellers should ask of their agents.
That is a great idea. We'll put it on the website.
Yep.
What to ask.
What to ask. And we'll continue to add to it as new laws emerge, as Wendy and her team see different scenarios play out in this marketplace.
And you should encourage people to call in and send their war stories, their horror stories, and you can put those up somewhere in your blog or whatever. Just real life tales of what really happens out there. Because I think too many of us think, what's the big deal? And the big deal is when you get burned.
Right. Right. And the challenge is, and I don't want to go and blast people. I don't want to, call anyone out by name. But legally I can't. If I know someone's been sued 12 times, I can't tell a client I'm not allowed to. But you can go to the California Department of Real Estate and look them up and see if there have been complaints.
Who would
So
even
that's going
think
to go on the
do any of
checklist.
this? Yeah. Who would even think to do any of this? I walked into an open house. We went, wow, this is exactly what we're looking for. How much are they asking? Okay. Well, you better move quick because there's 12 other buyers on the thing. Okay, honey, let's do it. And then pretty soon we're in signing documents, and then there's a stack of disclosures that
you've never seen before.
I've never seen before, and they're saying in the closing, you got 30 minutes to do this and get out and let's get going. And we've already sold our other place and we've moved. It was not a comfortable thing. The minute we casually said yes, it became a rush, and everybody was pushing us.
And I'm curious, was your agent there at the closing with you?
No. It turned out she'd only ever sold a couple. She was doing the open house because she was brand new at this thing.
Quelle surprise.
So it turns out perhaps buying the most important investment in your life should have more expert guidance and consideration than, say, buying a pair of boots on sale at Macy's.
Yeah, exactly. That's the way we bought the house.
And using an agent where the ink isn't even dry yet on their license, for the love of God.
Yeah.
I loved what Jackie said last week. She's an appraiser, and you can't even become an appraiser until you've spent hundreds of hours apprenticing under someone else. That should be the law for real estate agents.
Right.
It really should.
And
There's
I
too
understand
much
people have to learn and
Yeah.
everything, and so, but somebody should be holding their hand and walking through this and guiding them.
Don't
I
you
don't think
think?
our agent knew any more than we knew. She was just there at the right moment. We walked in,
Yeah.
swallowed the bait, and suddenly the race was on here. And it did feel like a fish pulling back against. They're trying to reel me in as quickly as they can, and I'm like, slow down, slow
I'm
down.
going to start calling you Marlin, Paul.
Yeah,
Right.
that's the way I felt.
The one thing I can tell you brokerages do train their agents on is scripts.
Yeah.
And they make them rehearse them and they make them recite them. They tell their agents what to say, how to handle objections, how to close a client. They do not train them about the industry.
No.
Which is
that's true.
really
They
scary.
felt like she felt like a salesperson. She was
Yeah.
pressuring me, closing me,
She was.
reassuring me, everything else, but just get the deal done as quickly as it could.
That's exactly what she was doing.
Yeah.
Bless her heart.
Bless her heart. I don't think she's even in the bill. I think she quit the business afterwards.
Well, after
I
we
never
go
heard.
off the air, I'll look her up.
I
Because
have
I
to go
can
looking
do
for.
that.
have to go looking for her name. I'm not even sure I remember her
like
name.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
We never
so-
talked to her ever again.
Why would you?
Yeah.
See, and
She never came to our house. I never heard from her again. She never.
you-
Literally. That's why I'm not even sure. I can picture her, but I'm not even sure I remember her name.
again, that blows my mind. It is such work in my mind to earn the trust of someone. Why would you not stay in touch with them? And my buyers from 5-10 years ago are my sellers today.
But when I go to Adidas or wherever and buy my new shoes, they never call me up, and I have no relationship with that salesperson. It's
But
a temporary.
Nordstrom's does.
Yeah, well, some do.
Saks will.
Yeah, it's a
Also,
temporary.
it's a pair of shoes,
Yeah.
not a house.
Right.
Yeah.
I bought it under the exact same way I did. It was an impulse. We were in the market. The timing was right. This place looks perfect, doesn't it, honey? Let's do it. And what started off as an exploratory conversation pretty soon got pushed into a close. And I don't think it turned out to be a bad thing. It was a good deal. But, there were problems along the way and things we wish we'd known about it and other sorts of things.
Absolutely. I think my clients may sometimes cry, "Uncle, stop talking." I'm kidding. They don't. I mean, my clients tend to be people who want to make well-informed decisions. Like right now, I've got one client who is, well, they're both attorneys. I've got other clients. Another client owns a very, very high-end furniture store. He's a very astute business person. I've got another client who is a really sophisticated graphic designer. These are people who want to know what they're doing.
They're truth seekers.
They're truth
They're truth
seekers.
seekers.
And they're
That's why they
seeking
go
out
to
the truth
veracity.
teller.
All right, well, we got to wrap up. Truth be told, we're done for today. I can't take anymore. My head hurts.
Mine too, but thanks, Paul, and thanks, Karen. For all of you listening out there, listen to us wherever you most like to listen to your podcasts, and don't forget to follow me, Wendy Ross, on Instagram and LinkedIn.